Okay, so hello, Professor Shears, Dr. Lee, and everyone at SAI. I'm Kon Hee, a second-year master's student here at SAI, and today I'll give a talk about GTOC 13. The outline of today's seminar would be as follows. I'll first introduce to you what the competition GTOC and this year's latest version, GTOC 13 is, and I'll introduce to you our team's approach to tackle the problem introduced in the competition. And then I'll move on to show our solutions and the outcomes for the competition. So first, what is GTOC? GTOC stands for Global Trajectory Optimization Competition. So it is a worldwide challenge to solve the nearly impossible problem of interplanetary trajectory design. So it is a global competition prepared for astrodynamics nerds just like me and Shin-sung here. And it's held every 1 or 2 years, and when it begins, it's held for roughly a month. And the problems and rules are set by the previous winning team. And if you look at the previous challenges, it ranges from simply deflecting an asteroid that is coming to Earth to even building a Dyson sphere around the hypothetical solar system. GTOC 13, the latest version of this competition, was held this year and was hosted by the Mission and Design Navigation section at JPL, who was the previous winner. It took place from 24th October to November 17th, so that's about 3 weeks. So let's start the introduction of the competition, first looking at the arena for this challenge. The arena here is the Altaira system, which means it's a hypothetical solar system that has a central star named Altaira. So just as our real solar system, it has outer planets, inner planets, as well as the asteroid belts and the comets, shown as here, each in gray and cyan colors. If you plot the trajectory, this plot was generated by Han-gyuk Kim. You can see the green asteroid belts, and there are also comets that have high eccentricities. Thank you. So the objective of this competition is to make a grand tour that flybys all planets and many small bodies, including asteroids and comets. And the means of steering that you could use to design such a trajectory, there are 2 means of steering. The first one is gravity assist, and the second is solar sailing. As you might all know, gravity assist provides a useful way of gaining or making your momentum taken away to the gravity assisting body so that you can alter your direction significantly. So it is quite an effective means of steering, but it has one critical limitation that you can only use it when you're flying by an actual celestial body. And the second one, the solar sailing, is better compared to gravity assist in the sense that you can do it anywhere, but it also has a limitation that you can, first, the acceleration itself is very weak, and you can only accelerate in radial outwards direction because you're taking the momentum from the photons that is coming from the central star Altaira. So, yeah. So by using those 2 means of steering, what you want to do is to fly by this current planet and to target the next planet shown here as Bespin, and to do that so on and so on. So the Beyonce and Bespin here is actually the real name introduced by the JPL team as hypothetical names of those planets. And before moving on to introducing our ways to tackle the competition, I would like to introduce our team, which was consisted by leader Jin-sung Lee here, and also Jae-ho Kim, Han-gyuk Kim, plus me, all 4 people coming from SAI. So what you want to do here is to design a trajectory that first starts from an interplanetary space and targets the first planet or any celestial body, and then move on to the next celestial body and so on to make an effective tour of this solar system. So I approached this problem like this. Maybe you could make in an object-oriented programming way, you can first make a class that is named trajectory, and you can define 2 kinds of critical functions. each named by start by targeting and fly by targeting. You would use the function start by targeting by first making the spacecraft start from the interplanetary space and target the first target, and then move on to the next planet and so on by reusing the fly by targeting function multiple times. And to do that, I built a solution framework to do that, and it has quite a lot of instances and methods. I won't go into all the details, but to just simply introduce, we first have the celestial body class for this solution framework. It abstracts all the planets, asteroids, comets, all the celestial bodies involved in this competition. And we also have the arc class, which represents each segments of those trajectory. So we have three kinds of arcs, that is flyby arc, conic arc, and propagated arc. And conic arc and propagated arc is again abstracted into transfer arc. And if you look at those two first classes, flyby arc and transfer arc, the flyby arc is responsible of describing the process of flying by an actual celestial body. And the transfer arc is responsible of explaining the motion between a flyby and the next flyby. And the reason why we have two classes again in the transfer arc is because if you don't use the solar sails, you'll be only coasting through the two-body problem dynamics, and that would be simply the conic arc. But if you use the solar sails, we have to numerically propagate the trajectory, and that is why the second arc is named as the propagated arc. And now by using the former celestial bodies and arc objects, we finally have the trajectory objects, which depicts all the final trajectory we want to design. And finally here you can see the fly by targeting and start by targeting functions that we want to implement. Let's start first by looking on how the start by targeting function was implemented. So what you want to do in the start by targeting function is, as I've mentioned already before, the initial setting is that you have your spacecraft placed on a YZ plane that has x equals minus 200 AU. So x equals minus 200 AU is the only factor that is fixed, and you're free to choose any point on the YZ plane. And you also have the freedom to choose the velocity in the x direction as well. So by choosing, and also you can choose the time of departure. And by choosing those vectors, you want to, when propagated in a two-body problem, make the spacecraft coincide with the first target. So what you want to solve here is a simple route finding problem to find y0, z0, and vx0 of spacecraft, plus the time of rendezvous, such that when those the targets and the spacecraft is two-body propagated, the distance between the spacecraft and the target becomes 0 at t rendezvous. So this is relatively simple, but it isn't for the case of flyby targeting. Let's start by what you should do in the second function. So the first two factors that you are free to choose is the radius of flyby and angle of flyby involved in the process of flying by. So the first radius of flyby determines the amount of deflection you get from the gravity assist. And even after you determine the amount of deflection, you have another freedom to choose the direction of the deflection. So even if you have a same amount of deflection, you can go this way or even this way. And the angle of flyby is the one that determines the second factor. And the net effect of choosing those two is you might get a cone that is reachable through this gravity assist. It won't be a planar cone, but actually a curved cone, but you might get the concept. So if the target you want to achieve is the body that you want to target next is within the cone, you can do it by the gravity assist. But there is no guarantee that the next target would be in this cone. So what you want to solve here is not a route finding problem this time, but a minimization problem. So you want to find the geometry, rp and theta, that is the radius of flyby and the angle of flyby that I introduced earlier, plus the time of rendezvous, such that when two-body propagated after flyby, you want the distance between spacecraft and target is minimized at T rendezvous. So if you look at this example, the solution might be RP and theta that makes the spacecraft go into this arc, and the time of rendezvous would be somewhere over here. So if you visualize that in a 3D place, we have the freedom to choose within the 3D space spanned by RP, theta, and T rendezvous. But but not all the points in that 3D space is always feasible. Once you have a RP and theta fixed, you would have the arc fixed, and you would have a designated time of rendezvous that is fixed to minimize the distance. So you might have the surface in this 3D region, and within the surface, you want to find the point that minimizes the distance between spacecraft and the target. And to do that, to implement this flyby targeting functions, we actually tried two ways of doing that, each named by shooting and Lambert. To look a more detailed view of each functions, let's first see through the shooting function. For a shooting function, you first fix an RP and theta and find T rendezvous that is suitable the best. So if you choose an RP and theta, that is the flyby geometry, you'd be fixing the arc, and there becomes a T rendezvous determined. And if you again visualize in the 3D space, you might be choosing a point in this plane and finding those corresponding point in the surface, and look at the minimizing distance here. But you have another method to do that by solving the Lambert's problem. As you might already know, Lambert problem is a problem where you specify the initial and final location of the spacecraft and the time to take the transfer. So this time we fix not the RP and theta, but T rendezvous first. And we know that there is a trajectory that satisfies such transfer time. And so this time we have a guarantee that for any T rendezvous, we have such an arc that connects this target and the next target within that rendezvous time. But there is no guarantee that there exists such an RP and theta that makes those arc. So if there exists such an RP and theta, we would be lucky, but if not, we would choose the most suitable RP and theta that best approximates the outgoing velocity. So if you visualize it again at the 3D space, you'd be first choosing the T rendezvous, and you might be choosing the intersection for the RP and theta. And plus the shooting and Lambert ways, I'd like to introduce that we also had a mixed use of exact and heuristic algorithms. The reason why we did that is because oftentimes astrodynamics is not, the physics itself is unlinear. And because we involve cases where we use multi-revolutions to rendezvous with the next target, it also makes the solution space more complicated and non-convex. And so the problem is that we cannot expect the gradient descent to work well. So we interchangeably used the exact and heuristic methods, each implemented in FMINCON and genetic algorithm. And in many cases, we used a way where we seed a lot of initial solutions, pick the best ones, and tune them even further by the exact methods to produce the final solution. So this is how the first part of the flyby targeting function is implemented, but it may be not enough. As I've explained earlier, the effect of gravity assist can simply lack, or there are also cases where the bodies that you're flying by are practically assumed to be massless, so you cannot do any gravity assist there. So in those kind of situations, you want to now use the solar sails. As you might remember, we had those two means of steering, that was gravity assist and solar sailing. We want to use the second means now as well. So what you want to do in the second part of flyby targeting that uses sail is like this. You have this green trajectory, which is the initial guess that was produced by the first part of the function, that is by only using gravity assist. And using that as an initial value, you want to first segmentate the initial guess trajectory into multiple segments and assign a pair of alpha and beta angles each to the segments. What each alpha and beta denotes is the control angle for that solar sail. So the first angle alpha describes how much momentum you'd be taking those protons. And the second angle beta explains on what direction we would be posing the momentum to change our spacecraft's direction. So what we want to do is we want to find the controls for each segment, that is alpha 1, beta 1, alpha 2, beta 2, and so on, plus the flyby geometry and T rendezvous, such that it minimizes the distance between spacecraft and target at the rendezvous time. There are some considerations here. First, that not only the control angle, but also the flyby geometry and T rendezvous must be tunable as well, because as I said earlier, the direction that you can accelerate by using those solar sails is only in the radial outward directions. So if the initial guess that are provided is already radial outwards than the planet that we are going to target the next, there's no way to tune that even closer to the next planet by only using solar sails. So that is the reason why the RP and theta should be tunable as well as the control angles. And we should be also aware that the periods near Altaira is the most critical periods because it is when you can use the most acceleration using those solar sails. So this is an example plot of using those solar sails. You can see the last arc of those trajectory has multiple colors denoted, and this is the propagated arc. And if you look at the earlier arcs, like this pink and orange arc, it is only a single color, denoting that it is only a conic arc that does not use the solar sail. So we can now consist the whole procedure of the flyby targeting function. It is as follows. When you first get the function call, you first try to solve that problem by only using gravity assist, which is specifically implemented through either by shooting or Lambert. And if you succeed in that procedure, you can immediately return the trajectory. But if you're not lucky, and if you did not succeed to do that, you should provide the best approach as the initial guess to use the sailing. And in the sailing part of the problem, we want to solve a direct optimal control of sails by doing a segmentation of the trajectories. And there's still no guarantee that we can target the next target by doing so. But anyways, we should return the best now here. And this is an excerpt from an actual code base that we wrote. We have here flyby targeting and target parameter going in, and there are also rendezvous additional arguments such as rendezvous direction use sails, or whether to allow retrograde or low pass orbits. But this is out of the scope of this seminar. So now we have the trajectory class, which includes the start by targeting and fly by targeting. What you want to do is to implement a recursive automated search. So the procedure is like this. You first start the search by initializing the trajectory object, and then call the start by targeting in the initial stage. And the next stage is you might pick the next targets by some smart logic. And for each body in those pool, you try appending a new segment to that trajectory by calling the flyby targeting function. And if you succeed in that function, you might get a trajectory that another flyby is appended. And if that succeeds, you might save the new trajectory and go on to search for one more deeper level of that search. But if you failed in doing so, you must proceed to the next target and continue the search in the same level. And you do that until you exceed the maximum time or number of flybys. So here are some solutions that we found using this automated search. And the trajectory shown here ranges a number of flybys from 18 to about 36. So I would say the automated search was quite, in a sense, successful, because there would be a quite cumbersome number of flybys to do that only by hand. And by using those solutions, the outcomes was 9 plates. I wish. This was actually in the beginning stage of the competition when we first submitted one of our initial solutions. And back then I had this strange feeling that this might be when we would rank the most highest, and I should take a screenshot. And unfortunately, it turned out to be true. In the final stage, we ranked on a 30th place out of 52 teams participated. And I'd say it's a partial success because we ranked first among 2 teams that from KAIST.
There were 48 teams who weren't able to make a solution.
Yeah, I should also mention them. There were actually 100 teams that enrolled, and 48 teams didn't even succeed to submit a successful solution.
Okay, so we are in upper 31st.
Yes, I'd say so.
Great.
Personally, the most saddest part to me was that the actual solutions that contributed to our rank was not the one that was found by this automated search, but actually the one that was manually calculated by Jae Kim. So we didn't really have the chance to validate all those frameworks that could prove that all the frameworks that we wrote were quite effective. We simply lacked a lot of time. So now to wrap up, here's what I obtained. First, I enjoyed a brief indulgence in solving a problem that is free of any politics and economics. As you might all know, in real-world problems, when solving real-world problems, science and engineering is not the only factors that you must consider, but you must also consider all the economic and political factors. And then I also mastered a bunch of MATLAB functions as written here. To be honest, I didn't really even know well about the fmin_con function when I started participating in this competition, but now I know all the optimization and solvers, what they're doing in MATLAB. And then I also learned how to formulate and solve optimal control problems. Interestingly, in this semester, I'm taking the optimal control course led by Professor Jae Myung-an. And back then, when I was implementing it was first implemented by Jin Sung Lee, but when I was modifying and reading through those solar sail controlling code, I didn't realize that it was an actual optimal control theory that I was applying to solve this problem. But as the semester went by, I got to know what methods are in doing an optimal control, and then it was not until then that I realized that what I was doing was actually the things that were dealt in that course. And also I succeeded to learn the general techniques to design deep space missions involving multi-gravity assist, which exactly coincides with my main research interest. So I think this experience might be of great help for a long time. There are also things that I wanted to try but couldn't because we simply lacked of time, including better segmenting of the solar sailing trajectory. As maybe you might remember, but in those segmenting of those solar sails trajectory, we had an equal spacing. But as I've mentioned earlier about the considerations, you should be more cautious about the parts that when you're close to Altaira. So if you can segment it better by doing a more detailed segmentation when you're near the Altaira, you might get a better result. And plus, what I wanted to do was parallelize the search because each search took quite a long time. And I also wanted to, if time allowed, to try a long-term optimization, because what the flyby targeting did in our framework was just to look at the next targeting and not consider about the next targeting that we want to do. And what I'll do is bide my time for revenge. And we also have the GTOC 14 being notified in the official homepage. And because it's held every 1 or 2 years, I expect there will be at least 2 more opportunities to participate in this competition. And until then, I should practice more and expect a better result in the next competition. And all the frameworks introduced here can be found in that repository. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
So Tsinghua University, they did the best, right? Tsinghua
I'm not sure because I think this was introduced. Are they the winning team?
Tsinghua won the GTOC 13, so that's why they're holding it.
Okay. Can you go back to your strategy? About the search of the target. Yeah, this slide. So, is the kind of the sequential procedure you start with one and you search for the potential target, and out of them, you go to the next, and is the kind of sequential procedure, or how can you kind of go back to the previous node and restart the node search? You mentioned that there is depth first search, right?
Yes.
And actually, so the full search algorithm is kind of combined with the depth and breadth, right? So how can you kind of incorporate your kind of the search algorithm with kind of by widening the breadth as well?
Actually, I tried doing a breadth first search as well, but I didn't introduce here due to lack of time. But you can simply change this algorithm into a BFS by just postponing the next search into a place outer of this for loop. So you can just save the trajectory, and if you call the search after all this loop ends, then it might be just a BFS. So by posing a simple modification to this code, you can just alter between BFS and DFS.
And based on my memory, actually, I read the description of the GTOC 13, and there are many targets, but actually different targets with different scores assigned to each target.
Yes, so the consideration on each scores that we want to target goes on to this part of picking the next target candidate. So this was also excluded from the seminar due to lack of time, but to introduce the procedure of choosing next targets simply, we first choose the ones that were not visited yet. And we prioritize that ones are of high value or that are close to current body of flyby. It is important because we didn't have all the resources to search all the branches.
Was the total cost just the sum of the points?
No, it wasn't. There was a lot of complicating factors. There was first the speed that you're flying by the celestial body was important. And it was unoptimal at about 5 to 10 kilometers per second. And also, when you're doing a multiple flyby for a single body, the seasons that you're doing that also matter. So actually, this kind of trajectory is bad because all the seasons that you're doing the flyby is similar to each other. And if you do like a pedal rotation, that would be the best because all the flybys that you're doing for a single body would be all different in the seasons. So that also counts to the score. And if you also succeed to do a grand tour, including all the planets and more than 13 flybys of small bodies, you have also a bonus factor of about 1.3, as I remember.
Do you know in the GTOC 13 website, there's the solutions of the first to 10th place?
Yes, I saw it.
Did you see? So I guess looking at the European Space Agency Advanced Concept Team solution, seems like our approach was not the best approach for making the good amount of points. Also looking at Tsinghua, right? Because they only toured comets and used Vulcan as a pivot. Did you see?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So there
There was a bonus that was supposed to multiply our cost by 1.3 if we did the grand tour. So we were thinking, okay, this got to be the right way.
Yeah.
And it turned out that the teams that was the first to maybe 5th or 6th was only going to comets.
Okay.
So their strategy is instead of the visiting many kind of the bodies, I mean, you have to focus on the high value bodies,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So I don't know how they all came up to the same idea and utilized Vulcan as a pivot and goes.
Is Vulcan the closest one?
Vulcan's the closest, but the gravity parameter is similar to Jupiter.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a quite interesting
So it's
factor
sort
of
of
the
like a
system.
Cassini tour
Yeah.
is using Titan again.
Yes, that's correct.
So how many times did the Tsinghua team do
Tsinghua
that? Like
team
200 times?
explored asteroid 100 times. And advanced concept team did around 89 or something.
Were they the second?
They were the second. They were the second until the 30 minutes before the end of the competition. And Tsinghua took it away in like 29 minutes until before the end of the competition.
Any more questions?
How much time did you spend on this?
Pretty much.
A lot and a lot. Actually, I injured my leg and I was in my home for 2 months, and all that I could do was sit in front of my computer and do those GTOC things. And yeah, I think I spent more than 100 hours to do that. I think so.
Yeah.
And because of that, I couldn't study a lot about the subject that I should take an exam tomorrow.
Alright.
It was all my choice.
Yeah. But these are interesting designs. I mean, you have mission designs.
Right.
I think this is a good topic for your home study.
Yeah, it was.
During